All right, day 3. I don't have a lot of time, basically almost less than an hour to get something done for today. I really like how the intro sequence came out. Let's make sure I am in focus. But I'm not too sure about those 4 cards I had as far as like navigating the user on into like the rest of the experience. I kind of just want to get some assets and get right into coding and prototyping some things to check whether or not that those ideas even work. So we'll see what happens, and I'm gonna try to move really fast. But already I've been trying to record this intro for like 20 minutes, and yeah, classic. Anyways, day 3. Let's get into it.
All right. Unfortunately, I don't know how real vloggers do it, like especially the daily ones where they get so much done. But yeah, I only had an hour, less than an hour actually. So we didn't get too far in day 4, but still decided to share with you. As you can see there, I spent a good amount of time trying to figure out the music, try to get in the zone. And then I went down the rabbit hole of looking for pre-made assets, which honestly, sometimes I feel like it's just potentially easier to just make it yourself. Like it'll just be faster unless you're really open to just making a ton of compromises, which is what I did here. I realized that just like a regular Predator drone or like some sort of drone wouldn't look good small. So I needed something with a lot more shape to it and something that felt realistic. And so I started falling back on these fighter jets. The biggest thing I was trying to do here is look for something that has a low polygon count. I didn't want an asset that's super heavy because we're going to have a lot of things happening on the site. And I didn't want the model, the main model, to be super, super heavy. So I went ahead and downloaded a decent looking jet. And I might replace this, but for now, I think this does a pretty good job. Okay, here I started looking for terrains, like projects that have pre-made terrains. I found this one, which is pretty cool. I found a couple. This one was like, honestly, like from 10 years ago, I think it said. Like the repo said the commit was from 10 years ago. It's pretty cool. These are Three.js projects, as you can kind of tell if you're familiar with the debug. What this is essentially doing is it's spitting out a height map to displace the plane geometry. Where you see black, it gets higher. Where you see white, it is lower. Right? No, I think I have that flipped. Anyways, it shows you elevation. I was playing around with this. I realized that this is definitely the solution I'm going to go for. It actually doesn't help me compose things. So I needed to get into Blender, play around with the model. So I quickly paused on that one and loaded up the model. This model is pretty intense. Like it has landing gears. It has some kind of internal components to it that, you know, we won't even see. So I was just trying to figure out how to optimize this model, how to play around with it. And honestly, because of the time constraints, I somehow was like fumbling around even longer. Something weird kept happening with the HDRIs, just the global kind of lighting. So I opted to just grab and create a massive area light just to light up my scene. Right here, I'm in Cycles renderer. Typically, I would stick to Eevee if you're in Blender, if you're familiar with that. I'd stick to Eevee because that kind of brings you closer to what Three.js or WebGL is capable of rendering, because it just doesn't have all the volumetrics. It doesn't have any of the fancy kind of ray tracing stuff that you see with Cycles. Just exporting out some assets here that I know I'll need, and then getting a bit distracted there. It's just like so hard. Sometimes if like I need like 30 minutes, honestly, to ramp up to full like focus. Like even here, I'm kind of fumbling around with the Blender UI, which, you know, just doesn't make any sense. But that's, that's kind of like a day 3 situation here. I thought I would be going in a completely different direction today, but kind of ended up here messing around with the jet. Now that I actually have a model to play around with, I always like to get a good look or a snapshot of it, just to validate that this isn't a stupid idea. It just kind of gets me excited. So same with the prototypes, doing those quick 2 frame prototypes. It just shows you okay, we're moving forward. I am making progress, all that good stuff. So it's kind of a dopamine hit, I suppose. And here I definitely didn't need to be spending time working on the terrain, because I decided I was going to do it programmatically. But here I am trying to create a stage, make things look cool, but I realized there has to be kind of a quicker way to do terrains in Blender. So I quickly took this opportunity to take a detour, learn about some plugins. I was able to spin up this terrain right here in literally 2 clicks. Unfortunately, I can't really export this. You can see it's 2 different planes, so it doesn't flow seamlessly. So I was kind of a little bummed about that, but at the same time, I think, it's going to get me to a nice little snapshot. And that's kind of what I'm after here. As a creative that also has ADD and is constantly distracted, but also passionate about everything, I really spend a lot of time trying to get to a perfect, rewarding moment, even though it seems like it's out of the way. But here, still kind of messing around. I ditched that second plane, just basically transforming this terrain here and moving the jet around to get kind of a nice look. I'm also trying to figure out that intro shot or that intro sequence. Are we in a bird's eye view? Are we super far away from the action? What is it actually? So a lot of my thinking here was I'm trying to figure out when you first go onto the website, what are you seeing, right? Does it just feel like you're super high up in the air, kind of like that, or even higher? Because I think the reference had something a little bit higher. But then I really loved the shots where it was Top Gun, where you were just right behind the jets and following them. So I think that's really cool too. But we'll see on what's actually kind of feasible. As much as I don't want to spend too much time with design work for this sprint, it's the thing that kind of gets me excited and the easiest win, pretty much. So I did end up spending a good amount of time just trying to get a good shot, a good comp that's not just, taken from a screenshot of a YouTube video from another company. So as you can see here, my perspective also changed. I'm now kind of looking at it from this way. The shape it was creating at the bottom of the screen there provided an anchor as well as a nice depth, and it felt a little bit more immersive than the reference, which just the entire screen was littered with those lines. I think this was a more interesting composition. And you can see here, you can center it. It's starting to look really cool. But another thing too that I think will really make this project awesome is if I can take advantage of the terrain with this background and make it as seamless as possible. I think that's gonna make it really dramatic and look awesome. I love the scales that I'm playing around with here. Also the colors. I got really excited about the colors. I was like, oh man, I think there's going to be a lot of things we can do with the colors. So here, I'm pretty happy with this comp. Just kind of fading it out a little bit. It was a bit much. Yeah, I was actually fairly happy with the comp for, just a handful of minutes, basically trying to get something decent. It's by no means super creative, whatever that means, but I think it's got a lot of potential, especially if I could figure out how to make these lines for the mountains a little bit more dimensional, have some texture to them, maybe animation, who knows? I think that'd be really cool. I think at the very least, like even here, as I was repositioning the landscapes, I realized that I should really think about rotating, like auto rotating the landscape. And that's it, man. Day 3. It's kind of terrible that I didn't get much done. I know that it was like less than an hour, but I wish I could just spend time on this project. But that's life. Catch you on the next one. See ya.